So many women have learned how to function, how to give, how to hold it all together. But somehow we have truly forgotten what it's like to feel at home, really at home in our bodies.
And that's why we created Rooted in Desire, a 2-day tantric immersion just for women so that you can slow down and you can start to listen to your body so that you can release what no longer serves you and reconnect with your sensuality as something deeply intelligent and highly sacred.
This is really more than a weekend. It's a reclamation for your confidence, for your sensuality, for your sovereignty. You, my friend, my sister, are meant to feel turned on and totally alive in your body. You're meant to trust yourself and you're also meant to trust others. How do we cross that hurdle?
Well, we're going to do it through tantric practices, through qigong, and through jade egg practices, not to mention sacred ritual. We're going to explore feminine power as something lived, not just
Mhm.
performed. It's not about pushing boundaries. It's about safety, presence, and truth.
You'll be held in a circle of women who are walking the same path. We're curious, we're open hearted, we are ready to meet and encounter ourselves more fully. And there is something so profoundly healing about being seen and witnessed and not needing to explain or perform.
So, this is really your invitation to step into sensuality and self trust, not someday, but right now.
For more information, including the cities and the dates that you can register for Rooted in Desire, go to sexreimagined.com/rooted in desire.
If you think that low sex drive is a problem to your relationship, think again. The real reason desire fades has nothing to do with attraction and everything to do with something so much deeper. And today, Susan Taylor is going to enlighten us on her proprietary process, which will really bring that passion and that spark back to life, no matter how long you've been together.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
Welcome, Susan.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about our conversation today and really excited to talk about this topic around, the low desire, which I think there's such a myth around that and so much misunderstanding. So I'm really happy we're going to shed some light on that today for your listeners.
What do you think is like the number one myth that really, blocks people and gets people, disconnected from each other?
Sure. Well, there's the myth of the high desire, low desire. We hear that all the time.
Like the disparity between usually male and female, men want it more. Women,
if we're going to be stereotypical. And it's
In general.
usually, clinically, we call that desire discrepancy, but out there you'll hear it as mismatched libido. And in sort of that stereotypical role, women are often sort of cornered into this place of being the low libido partner while the man is the high libido partner. And so there's this whole conversation around, a lot of times what it ends up looking like is how do you get that lower libido labeled partner to match the level of the high libido partners? So that becomes the whole conversation. Or sometimes the opposite can happen. I've worked with clients where the man felt he had to shut down his desire because he was so tired of being rejected and he felt terrible and guilty and like, I'm just too much for my partner. So I'm going to manage this, to cope with this, I'm just going to shut it down. And neither of these are really the effective strategy. So the whole conversation, I think, around high desire, low desire, we need to reframe that completely and have a completely new paradigm for looking at what's actually going on.
So tell us how we reframe that.
Yeah, give us the reframe.
What is actually happening? Well, so there's really three roots to this problem, how I see it, like three causes of what creates this desire discrepancy. And one of the main ones is a lack of connection to our direct pleasure pathways. So the inability to actually access our own desire and our own pleasure. So there's a whole lot of things that feed into that. This is one of the things that I help my couples with at my couples retreats that are the pleasure keys, which I know we're going to talk about pleasure keys today. But really helping couples be able to actually come into their own bodies and being able to access what's called direct pleasure. So we have two pathways in our bodies that we experience pleasure. There's the direct route and the indirect route. And what tends to happen a lot is we get overly dependent on the indirect route. And that can cause kinds of challenges. So the indirect route is like, if I see my partner having a good time, then I get enjoyment out of that. The use of pornography, for example, is another form of indirect pleasure. It's coming through the visual cortex into the brain, and then we get aroused from that, or we experience enjoyment from that indirect route. So there's nothing inherently wrong or bad about this. We want access to that pathway as well. But where it starts to cause problems is when one partner is unable to really be able to enjoy intimacy unless the other person is, for example, producing a certain response or a certain reaction, or if they're wanting the thing that the other person is doing at the same time the other person's wanting it. It creates all kinds of discord and disharmony. And it can also lead to people pleasing, where one person maybe feels like they have to produce an orgasm. Oh gosh, I have to act like I'm liking this so that he has a good time. But it also can create a real disconnect in our stereotypical couple. We'll just say with the woman being the one who's maybe just kind of going along with things, that inability to actually contact what she wants and what feels good for her. She thinks that she's doing everything he wants, but then he thinks he's doing everything for her to try to get her to have a good time, when there's all these wires crossed.
All this mismarks. I imagine it leads to a lot of mind reading, which can be so frustrating, trying to guess and maneuver and do all these things that you hope will work, but people have a hard time communicating to really find out what works and what doesn't, or being honest about what's working and doesn't work.
Well, that happens too. And really at the core of this dynamic is the not asking for what you want. And there's a lot of reasons to that. Like, maybe I don't know, because I've been so like obsessed with making sure my partner's happy and everyone else is happy that I have no freaking idea what I want or what I like. So there's that aspect. So to know what you want. But then the next piece is there's so many obstacles to asking for what we want.
Totally.
And at the root of that is really, it comes down to fear, right? There's fear I'm going to be too much. I'm going to be rejected. What if my partner doesn't want it? Shame. So many roots to that. So the core of that is knowing how to know what I want. And to do that, we have to have access to that direct pathway. And the direct pathway is just the direct from stimulation to the nerve endings on the skin up to the brain, having access to that. And it's remarkable how shut off many of us are from that, from our ability to really access that direct route. And there's a whole host of reasons for that.
Yes. So many reasons, like societal pressures and constructs and limiting beliefs that we learned from parents, from religion, all these.
Yeah, I imagine
sort of
shame is like a huge
pleasure.
obstacle in all of this.
Yeah.
Sure. Like, how many of us as kids, I mean, I remember being a kid and getting curious about my body and being sort of, my mom giving me the sideways glance, like, what are you doing? And so, that builds in just at a very young age, the shame is built in. And then, as women, we're not supposed to be too sexy, right? So we have a lot of slut shaming. And I think men also, they get the boner shame, right? They're shamed for being too sexual and And so it goes both ways. And it really can cause us to shut down from that ability to celebrate our bodies and really to access our own pleasure and celebrate our own desire, to the extent that what we'll end up doing instead, we could have a whole podcast episode on what do we do instead of ask for what we want. But a lot of times what I see as I work with my couples is they'll put that desire on the other person and, hey, do you want XYZ? Do you want this, right? Instead of like, hey, I would like this. What do you think? Are you willing, not willing? We'll put it on the other person. Like, hey, is this something you try to sneakily get it?
If they're putting that desire on the other person and the other person is like not picking up what they're laying down, then there often is this sort of like, well, then they must not be attracted to me, or they must not love me, or they, they start to make up more ideas around that. Can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. We put all kinds of meaning on it when what we're really doing is displacing our desire into somebody else. Hey, do you want this thing? And if that person says, no, I don't want it, then we make it mean that, okay, well, if they don't want
I'm
it,
never
then
gonna have
I'm
it.
too much, never going to get it, or I'm too much, or she doesn't love me, she doesn't want me, I'm not desired. When really what needs to happen instead is a direct, really what I call clarity. So much of this conversation is really about how do we create clarity in the intimate relationship. And a lot of that begins with communication. But we can't have clarity if we're not clear around what am I wanting? And is this moment, who is this moment for? So that's sort of the next, I said there was 3 things. The next piece is really identifying who is this happening for? Because if I don't know, if I'm not owning my own desire and I'm putting it on someone else, then now there's a whole bunch of things potentially that are happening that maybe nobody wants to have happen at all. And I can give a great example.
Yeah, what's an example?
So I love this one because I see this happen all the time around oral sex for some reasons, in particular. And I had a couple that came to me, and they were having just every time they would go to be intimate, it would just end in what I call a train wreck, right? Like something would go south, they'd say, forget it. And they got to the point where they were avoiding having sex, avoiding intimacy because there was so much anxiety that it wasn't going to go well. Well, come to find out, one of the things that was happening was he was going down on her, giving her oral sex just because he kind of thought like, well, I mean, I guess that's just like the next thing to do. And in her head, she never, like, oral sex just wasn't really her thing. Like, she didn't really get a lot of pleasure out of it. But she also felt two things. Number one, she felt like she should be enjoying it because there's sort of this idea that you're supposed to like oral sex. A lot of women orgasm that way. She was not one of them. So for her, it was like, so she was trying to make herself like the thing. And she also was trying to make it look like she liked it so he would feel.
Yeah, make him feel good about what he wasn't even enjoying.
I know this trap well.
Yes, I'm sure we all have some version of this. I do too. I mean, I could share personal stories on this, but so come to find out, and nobody was communicating this, right? So this whole thing's happening, and he's going like, why isn't she liking it? Oh my God, I'm not doing it right. She's not attracted to me. And in her head, she's like, well, like, I don't know, why am I not liking this? I should be liking it more. And so it was just this train wreck. You know, he'd get frustrated and give up. She would feel like something was wrong with her. So through our work together, once I helped them understand how to pull this apart, and I asked them the question, well, who is it for? Like, are you going down on her because it feels good for you and you love it and it's like really turns you on? Or are you doing it because it's something she desires and she's expressed how much she loves oral sex and wants to receive that from you? And come to find out, neither of them wanted it.
What an easy solution for that couple. Just cut it out.
That was the perfect illustration for that question, who's this for?
Yeah.
Let's go a little bit deeper with the first area of inquiry, which is, what do I want?
Mm-hmm.
What are my desires? I remember just years of me even wrestling with this, of not sure what I wanted. It was just my only thought was try something, and all I can do is tell you if I like it or not, which put all the responsibility out there. And it's been very enlightening and empowering to discover and have the courage to articulate out loud, which was another hurdle, was starting to know what I like, but now saying it out loud. And I think I had a leg up because being a teacher, I would tell classes. So I felt like I got a big leap by having to tell more than one person at a time. Got really good at it fast, but what's the process? How do you help someone who really has no clue what they desire? How do they investigate that?
Sure. And what you just spoke to is actually a very valid way of starting to discern it, because sometimes, well, I'll tell you what the pathway is, but there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of containment. And actually, that is part of the process of having some options, playing with different types of touch. Sometimes we don't realize there's different types of touch and sensation. And even no touch at all. Like, we never considered that, right? We think sex has genitals and
preach.
No movement.
Yes.
So there's a whole things that can be on the buffet, right? And so sometimes it's helpful to have some options to help us kind of get the juices flowing. On a very fundamental level, it's what I call the 3 N's of my Pleasure Keys process. And it stands for notice, name, negotiate. So the very first step is this capacity to notice, what am I capable of noticing right now in this moment and in my body? Can I take a minute and just pay attention? If I were to close my eyes right now and I would ask you to do the same, can you just notice, what do you feel? What sensations are currently available to you as you scan your awareness through your body? So right now I can feel the weight of my legs against this chair. I feel the cool air actually on my skin over here. And so I'm starting to just exercise that muscle of noticing. And what that helps us to do, what we're actually doing is we are beginning to expand that access into the direct pleasure route. So I'm starting to exercise that muscle, which just starts with that ability to notice. And from there, I can start to notice if we're going to involve, if I could find pleasure right now in my body, just a place where pleasure is already existing. So I'm not trying to manufacture anything and there's no actual partnered touch happening. Can I just find and locate a place in my body right now that feels good, that has a nice feeling to it, something that's enjoyable or that feels spacious and not contracted, right? So finding enjoyment where it already lives. And the next step to that is the ability, can I name that? So I might identify a part of my body maybe that does desire some kind of touch or a need that I have. And what I can do then is I can name it. I can notice right now, I would love a little neck massage. I would love some attention here on my neck. Or I would love I could say to my partner, for example, I would love if you would just sit across from me and just look into my eyes. Or maybe there's something else I need. What I need to hear right now is that you love me. So I can start to identify what I want or what I need or what I like, right? And I can't do that if I don't have connection to that ability to start to notice what's happening right here within my own body. So the second piece is the naming of it. The third piece, that third N, is the negotiation. And there's a lot of ways negotiation can happen. And no, it doesn't have to be like a business meeting, though it could be. It can also be like very sexy. But negotiating is really just the art and the skill of being able to bring that into the relational space. So this is where that overcoming the differences in sexual desire discrepancy, it really comes down to this ability to have the necessary skills to do these three things: notice, naming, and negotiating. And within each of those three ends, there's a different skill set that we're developing. A lot of people try to go straight to the negotiation part when they haven't done the very first part of the noticing or the naming. And that's where a lot of the train wrecks happens with couples.
Right.
With the noticing and the naming, is this like, for instance, the noticing and sensation, are they touching themselves? Is their partner touching them?
So
Either
noticing
or?
really, well, it can't. So it really begins, I believe, first with, it doesn't have to begin with any touch at all. So what we
Okay.
just did a minute ago was just that scanning awareness through the body, sensual awareness, a practice of sensual awareness. Can I just become aware of sensations in my body? No touch happening at all. The next aspect of this would include touch. And one of the simplest ways, it doesn't even have to start out with partnered touch. It can begin with a practice that I learned from Betty Martin called waking up the hands, which is a lovely way, just as a solo practice, to start to expand our capacity for direct pleasure. And then if we want to begin, so we go baby steps, right? Then we can take that into a partnered practice, a beautiful practice. Actually, one of my clients dubbed it the curious touch practice. So I have actually taken that and I name it the curious touch practice, where we just begin with a very non-sexual body part like a hand. Hey, may I explore your hand? Can I feel your hand? Hopefully your partner says yes, consents. And then all I'm doing, I'm transferring that skill set now to a living human, which is a whole different set of, there's a lot more that comes with that.
Yeah,
and it's
more nuances.
Way more nuances. And it's remarkable what happens when just that transition comes into play and all the obstacles that start to come up, or the potential obstacles to pleasure. Suddenly, what can happen a lot of times, suddenly it's like, oh no, what if my partner's not wanting this, or they don't like it? But what we're really doing is we're learning to touch in a way that feels good for our own body with consent of the other person. So there's a lot of stuff about this that it's totally game changing once it clicks, but it can be a lot to wrap your head around at the outset.
Let's take a quick break.
Hey guys, what would it be like if you could last 10 times longer when you're having sex?
We are going to teach you how to gain massive confidence as a lover, all without performance anxiety, gimmicks, or prescription.
This course is perfect for you if you've ever been mortified by a sexual encounter that ended way too early.
Or if you've ever avoided intimacy out of fear that you won't last as long as your lover desires. Or maybe you long to give your partner multiple orgasms but can't last long enough to make that a reality.
Well, good news, we've got your back. And it's in our course, Last 10 Times Longer. Go to sexreimagined.com/last the number 10 x longer.
And for all of our favorite listeners out there, we are giving you a discount, 20% off, y'all. Just put in podcast 20, all caps, podcast 20, to get your 20% off of this phenomenal course that you're going to want to review more than once.
The link is in the show notes. We cannot wait to see you inside this course. Plus, don't forget, we always got tons of bonuses. See you there. I love that. I love that distinction with like touching for your pleasure, knowing what feels good because hands feel good when they're oftentimes touching something, and then being the touchy and feeling someone's touch
Yeah.
and noticing the qualities of touch that really open you. And I think what's cool about the two that I've experienced is when someone is touching me for their pleasure, there's an amplification. Those mirror neurons get passed on to me, and then my pleasure intensifies
Oh,
because I love the loop
yeah.
of their desire building in relationship to what they're feeling when they feel me
Yeah,
on a tactile level.
Yeah, the pleasure looping and the mirror neurons, so powerful. And I'm imagining, trying to negotiate when you haven't taken the time to notice or to name is the reason people get into so much trouble there is
Yeah.
because they don't know exactly what they're negotiating. They
Right.
haven't like found the truth of what's happening inside of their own bodies. And the noticing feels like very presencing, just like getting into the present moment, getting
Yes.
into your body.
Yeah, and we also can't enter into a negotiation if we don't understand have the answer to who is it happening for. And that's a really confusing question to a lot of couples at the outset, because what you're going to always hear is, well, it's for both of us. Or I know it was for her because she was getting pleasure out of it. Or I know it was for me because I was liking it. So that's not the measure of who the moment's happening for. Just because you're getting pleasure out of it doesn't mean that the moment's happening for you.
Mhm.
Who is it happening for is when we identify whose desire am I following in this moment? Am I following my own desire, or am I following the desire of my partner? There are certainly moments in life where both people are wanting the same thing at the same time. Mutual enjoyment is absolutely a thing. But I'll tell you, the couples that come to me for help or that come to my retreats, they're not in that place. They're having a lot of problems and they don't know why they're having the problems. And this not understanding the nature of desire and who it's for and whose desire am I following at any one time is really at the core of that. And to get to that answer, we have to have the answer to that first question of noticing, what am I able to notice right now in my body? That's how I know if it's for me or for you, because you might say, hey, I want to do XYZ to you. Would that be okay? If I don't have access to my yes or my no, or really what's happening in me in response to that request, I'm not going to know if it's something that I'm willing to do or not willing to do, or if maybe it is a desire that I also desire to do. I'm not going to have access to that.
Okay, so now let's jump into the negotiation.
Okay.
What are the rules of engagement when it comes to
there's got to be some
negotiation?
communication tools that go along with this negotiation piece.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with the two questions of who, again, this comes back to who's it for. So what would you like me to do to you? Or what would you like to do to me? So those two questions actually create two completely different touch dynamics. One is me doing what I want to do, or me allowing you to do to me what you want. It's your desire, but I'm going to give you access to my body for your pleasure. The other one is asking, what is my desire? It's me asking to receive a gift rather than giving a gift. So we have the rules of engagement, understanding the difference between who's the giver and who's the receiver. That's really the fundamental thing.
It's such a fun and sexy practice, actually, I remember the first time I ever kind of played this with a partner, and it was, we gave each other, I think 3 or 5 minutes, you get 5 minutes to do whatever you want to my body, as long as I consent, and back and forth. And I mean, we hadn't even kissed at that point, right? So it was a new partner. So of course there was more charge around it, but like we were doing all kinds of things to each other. And then finally I was like, I want to kiss you. It was just so much fun, So I think when partners who have been struggling for a long time and like just their desires, and then they want to blame it on low libido and that they're not, and start to feel like they're not attracted to each other, and they just get into this kerfuffle of layers of stuff to unravel.
Right.
Just playing a simple game like this can totally unravel so much so quickly.
Yeah. I've got this answer rolling in my mind of two people going like, well, I want a blow job, and she's like, well, I just want my neck rubbed. So how do we then go from answering those questions to the next step in figuring out what we engage in, especially if you've got one person who really wants the sexual, another person who's
Mm,
all wrapped up in ropes around their ability or desire to be sexual. They might have to
yes.
start at like non-sexual touch first.
Absolutely. And so let's just take that's a great example in that one. Actually, that happens all the time, right? Well, first of all, like there's really often a desire to escalate this. We start very, very small when working with couples. We don't go straight for the genital or the sexual touch right out of the gate because it comes with so many other bits of baggage and it escalates. So it's backing way up first to develop the skills of negotiation first, because what can happen if there's too much too fast, we're going to default into the old modes of like, okay, he wants me to give him a blowjob, so I'm just going to do it because that's what I'm supposed to do, or that's going to keep him happy. Or I even had some clients once, they're like, well, in the spirit of doing the game, I just did it. I'm like, that's absolutely not
the game.
That's
You're
you
missing
missed
the
spirit.
point of the game.
mark. Yeah. The spirit flew right by you then.
It flew. On it went.
Yes. Well, that's hard to do, right? Because there's
It
this
is.
piece, I think, in partnership where it rocks your survival
Yeah.
to have these types of things confronted.
Right.
If I can just give you a blowjob, then it settles my nervous system down to think that our marriage is in threat
Right.
and we're headed to being broken and now we're super messed up. And I just want to have a little bit of space where we feel okay before the next thing.
Yes.
So we do end up saying yes when we want to say no.
Right.
And that is a bad habit. And yeah, how do you address that?
Yeah. So we want to get out of that habit. And because it's an unconscious habit at that point. It's a conscious of tolerating or being obligated. So we're trying to undo that. And the only way to undo that is through clarity. So all of this is about creating clarity. I think I probably already said that. But part of that is if we can bring it into the light, then it can become a conversation of, well, right now I don't feel like sucking your dick. I'm not really willing to suck your dick right now. But what I would be willing to do is XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
Or the conversation could also be, you know what? I don't really want to give you a blowjob, but I would be totally willing to do it because I love you. And like with an open heart, I'm full on willing to give that to you as a gift. So this is really about limits. So that's what we would call learning how to identify our own limits so that I can identify, is it something that am I willing to provide that? Meaning I'm not tolerating, I'm not doing it just out of obligation. My heart is open. I'm really genuinely willing to give that. Or are there some, there's some sticky points on that? I would kind of be violating something in me. I don't even have to know what it is if I were to provide that. But maybe there's something else that right now that I am willing to provide that I could give you with a full open heart. And could we renegotiate this ask so that it could be something that would make you super happy and that also I could give with a willing heart? So this is always necessarily easy, but that's the art and that's the skill. And now it's conscious. So it's not something that's happening in the shadows or unconsciously. And that's the fundamental difference.
What do you think about like transactional agreements? So I had a boyfriend once and we had so much fun with this. So I just want to like put my hand up that this was a great transactional process for us. But I noticed he would want something and I would notice I don't feel like it. Don't want to. But if you do this thing for me, I notice that I want to. And it really felt like an authentic thing. How do I get to my yes? Oh, I need something in order for my no to turn into a real yes.
Oh,
and then I would show up with total enthusiasm. But I had to kind of figure out, well, shit. I mean, I do want you to have what you want. I just don't want to give it to you until I get something that I want.
Sure. Yeah, I love that you just brought this in as an example because that's another part to the negotiation is we can ask this question of ourselves or of our partners. What would and I'll do this, what would I need right now so that I could? Mm-hmm. Right? So either person can ask that of the other. What would you need right now? Is there something I could give you or do or that you could give to yourself or do for yourself so that you would feel like doing XYZ or giving XYZ? And that is such a beautiful question because then it doesn't have to be the end of the whole thing. And that's where a lot of couples, the train wrecks, right? And then it's just like, let's call the whole thing off. It's just like game over instead of like, okay, that was a little funky and a little weird. Let's slow down. Don't know what happened there, but let's just slow down and let's just see, like, okay, is there something that I need right now so that I could relax a little bit more? So that I could provide that thing, or so that I could ask for the thing that I need. And I can either
Mhm.
give that to myself or ask for that from my partner. That's the
Yeah.
beautiful thing. It's not always something that my partner has to provide. Sometimes it's just that I need to ask for the thing, or I need to
Yeah.
take a deeper breath, or I need to slow down, right? It's something within
Right.
myself.
Right, like, I need you to go deal with the kids, I need a bubble bath.
Yeah.
I need to be
I need a
able to
hot
have a
tub soak.
transition. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I need you to take out the garbage, clean the kitchen, empty the dishwasher.
Yeah. And mop the floors and
Yes.
cut the grass.
Or I need a new laptop, whatever it takes. Or I just need you to say, "I love you," and pepper me with adoration and gratitude or whatever. Yeah.
Well,
Okay, good.
well, now it's like we're getting into people asking for their love language to be met, so really like understanding and knowing, is it words of affirmation that they need? Is it acts of service that they need? What is the thing that makes them feel loved and filled up to the point where they want to then generously give? So I'm
Yeah.
just so curious with the couples that you work with, like, let's say, a couple's been they start coming to you and they have been at a disparity inside of their marriage for, 10 years or a long
Mm.
period of time. Like, what's the general, like, how do you kind of meet them where they're at and
Mhm.
then, slowly or quickly bring them to a place of where they are actually having fun with these practices? Like, what's the
Yes.
time frame? What's the protocol? How do you weave this magic into what seems
Yes.
like broken marriages?
Well, yeah, in terms of format and time frame, I mean, I think the best way that I love to work with couples is through the immersion experiences, the Pleasure Keys retreats. I just see it's a 3-day, 4-night experience where you're just able to really dive deep and really make a lot of progress. So that's like my favorite way. It's not the only way. Otherwise, I can see it for most couples, it's a 4 to 6 month journey. If it's more of like a traditional meeting once a week type of thing to get the skills really built in. And there's stuff that has to be done outside. There's so much that can be done while we're working together, but couples have to be really willing also to where the rubber meets the road is implementing and setting time aside because you're developing a whole new skill set. And fun is the name of the game. And it all begins with, there's so much, there can be so much resentment that's built up in a couple that's been together for a long time. And there's been a lot of things that have happened over the years and, um,
Right.
right, emotional baggage and intimate experiences that have not gone right. And so we want to re-engage the idea of playfulness and fun. And the best way to do that is just by starting much more slowly. Maybe we don't even start with touch at all. That might be too escalated for some couples. Maybe we just start with learning how to identify and express desire and how to celebrate the expression of that desire. Because that's another thing that I see happen is one person will say, I want this. And the other person feels obligated to give it. And so they like shut down or withdraw, or they give it out of obligation, which we're trying to get out of these patterns. A expression of desire is not a request. And that's another clarification that I have to help my couples with. If someone
Say that
says,
again.
yeah,
Say that again.
an expression of a desire is not a request. Request looks different than an express. If I say, ooh, like I want to fuck you tonight.
Mhm.
That's
That's
me
an
just
expression.
expressing my desire. It does not mean that my partner has to consent to that or that I have to follow through with that. There's no pressure on. That's just me expressing something that I want. Oh, hey,
That
I
is
want $1 million.
so
If they have $1 million,
yeah. Yeah,
this
that's
way.
so important. I think that that is the key to creating permission for
Mm,
people to really explore their turn on, their desires, the deeper corners of what would be hot or sexy to them. Some of this transgressive sexual fantasy
yeah.
stuff that is all over romance novels. My God. It's like we never talk about how much that actually speaks to the population, which is mainly women who read romance novels,
Yes.
but it is full of sexy, transgressive energy. And there's so many things in that turn us on that's not saying, will you deliver that? But it's so
Right.
good to own it and to have language for it and to talk about it and explore it and to see all
Yes.
the richness and I think we haven't normalized female sexuality to the degree we have men
Sure.
in the name of desire. So I really love
Yes.
that you say that, because that gives people permission to explore it without feeling the pressure that if they say it out loud, that means they're asking for it.
Right. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a totally different thing. So the asking for it would be something totally different. That would be like, hey, would you like to have sex tonight? I can invite it. Right? Is that
Mhm.
something you want? Would you like to do that with me? Are you willing to do that? So it's an
Yeah.
invitation. It's a direct request or a direct invitation to have an experience together versus the expression of a desire. And so I had a couple I was working with a few years ago, and this would happen with them all the time. He would express, like, wow, you look so sexy. I really want to take you to the bedroom right now. Something, a sexual
Yeah.
remark, or just,
An
wow, you're so
expression.
beautiful, or oh my God. And she would completely, like a deer in the headlights, like freeze up, because she wasn't wanting that at that moment. And she would just go into this freeze response. Right. And then she would end up a lot of times giving in out of obligation. So when we worked on this piece of helping her and having the clarity, that's not a direct request. So can you just celebrate his desire and then teaching him how to make a direct request for it? Right. So he would have different language. If he wanted to, like, hey, are you willing, or would you like to? He learned that language. Are you willing to? Would you like to? Do you want to? Like, the invitation for the making the request versus I'm just expressing
Was he
the
aware?
desire. Very
Was he
different.
aware that he was just expressing, or was there also a request
point.
inside of his
Yeah,
expression?
Yeah, no, I think the
Sure.
wires were very crossed. I think he did not understand that at that time either. But yeah, and so there was it's when this stuff is in the shadows, it's not up illuminated
It's
in the
not
light, and there's
clarified.
clarity around it.
Yeah.
So and then I want to just add this in because this is a great time to bring this in. Like, the third piece here of, like, why couples get mismatched desire, they don't have the like the language, like the shared language and an actual framework to be able to start to have the clarity. They don't have the language and the framework and the skill set to create that clarity. So that's really all I do when I work with couples. It's what we do at the Pleasure Keys retreats. We're creating that clarity, the framework, and the common language so that then couples can navigate this on their own. And then you avoid those train wrecks tend to happen far less often. And when they do, you actually now have the skills to be able to navigate through it.
Mm.
I've what's popping through my mind is like the fantasy of having a threesome, right? And wanting to talk about how hot it would be if that bartender came home with us. But that doesn't mean it's a request. It's
Yeah.
actually it could just be a really fun, rich, sexy, titillating
Yes.
conversation
That
to
makes your
be
sex with your partner so
spontaneous.
much better.
Yeah, that could be really, fun just to say out loud and get hot and bothered by. And then, but not necessarily say, hey, should we pick them up? Should we pass them our phone number?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
is there
Go
language?
ahead.
Are there words that you would then kind of coach people on saying in like to preface, like, hey, this is not a request. This is just something that
Yes.
I want to express because it's up inside of me, and
Yeah,
hopefully
exactly.
it doesn't trigger you.
Yeah,
Hopefully it like
how do you create
makes the-
safety
yeah.
for those kinds of, because I even
Expression.
have conversations I haven't had yet with my husband
Yeah.
that I'm think about
Yeah.
that I kind of want to have, but I am a little not like I'm scared something bad will happen, but I don't want, like you said, like some sort of weird meaning making to
Totally.
happen, have it be hung over our relationship thing if it doesn't go well.
Totally.
And I think I don't really need it that bad to start a fuss. So what's the container that supports these conversations being fun, hopefully, versus
Yes.
triggering.
Well, yeah, I think
yeah,
there's different
disaster.
there's different containers for it. And Willow, like what you just said, that prefacing is that's one way to do it. Another really fun game that I've come across out there that I think is kind of fun is the expression of how I want to feel and versus what I want to actually do. So they're two different things. So it's
Yeah,
as a
like
game,
that.
like, hey,
Yeah.
hey, let's play a game. Okay, I'm going to express all the things that I want to feel intimately.
Mhm.
And I'm going to take like, let's just do 60 seconds each, right? We'll set a timer. So I'm going to do it and you get to do it. And then you can actually have an expression. Okay, all the things I actually would like to do to you or with you that I actually want to act on. And you set a timer and have a minute where you share that. So the time is an important piece. So that the time actually contains it. And it could be 3 minutes. It doesn't have to be 1 minute, but just something that's short and fun. And I think that you do have to have a certain understanding already in place, like you said,
Yeah.
Willow. Like, we don't want to bring stuff in if our partner is really going to be super triggered, we want to be sensitive to, I would get curious about what those triggers are before I ever would do something like this.
Yeah,
What are the
absolutely.
triggers? It doesn't mean I want to open the relationship, if that's a big trigger for somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
We might want to just get curious about that piece first before we like launch off the deep end and start expressing, let's bring the bartender home.
Right. I feel like, there's so many unexpressed desires, even outside of sexuality within long-term couples because of this idea of like, well, I just know how they're going to respond. I know how they're going to take this expression. I've tried it before. So the samskaras, like the old imprints from previous years in the relationship, and that shuts down the expression. So what would you say to couples who are kind of stuck in that, like, yeah, I'd like to express, I'm into the bartender, but that's going to be a shit show.
For days.
I love this bartender thing.
I do too. Who's this bartender?
I think he's Irish too, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Or she could be Italian. We don't know.
Okay, even better. Yeah, I think we have to. Well, there's a couple things on this. We have to be willing, I think, to see. We create so many stories, especially in long-term relationships. Stories about ourselves, stories about our partners, stories about the way that things were and the way things are. But can I stop for a moment? And I think one beautiful practice, can I just see the truth of my partner's heart? That I know that he or she loves me, he or she cares about me. Like really, if that's true in your relationship, which I would hope it is if you've been together that long, not maybe always for everybody, but can I see their true heart? Can I practice to give them a chance to be somebody new? So there's that piece, right? Can I give them that opportunity to be somebody different than how I am limiting them through how I'm seeing them? I'm not giving them an opportunity to become somebody new for me if I'm only seeing them through the eyes of the past. And the second piece is the willingness ourselves to show up differently because we get stuck in our own patterns and our own limiting beliefs and the negative self-talk that can go on inside our heads. Can I just tell that to shut up? And can I give myself a chance to be somebody new? Can I be so self-responsible and accountable for my own experience that I am willing to show up differently and that I'm willing to trust the moment and trust my partner to perhaps be somebody new and different also in that moment? We might really be pleasantly surprised.
So good. Tell us about the somatic therapy interventions that have been successful for you. And maybe first explain what is somatic therapy for those listeners that may be unfamiliar.
Yeah, there's a lot of lack of knowledge around that word and then also some confusion around it. And there are also different threads of somatic therapy in the sexuality realm. So thank you for that opportunity to clarify it at a really fundamental level. Somatic just means of or pertaining to the body, meaning it's an approach where we're incorporating more of experiential knowledge and wisdom that our bodies bring. The reactions that happen in our body, we're actually actively working with those in somatic approaches to therapy, whether that's around sexuality or even trauma or any other type of, psychological. It can be used across the board through mental health all the way into sexuality, trauma resolution. So in my work as a somatic sex therapist, I am not putting hands on my clients. There are some threads of somatic sex work, somatic sex education, sexological body work. These are somatic approaches that do hands-on work where the practitioner touches the body, and sometimes genital touch is part of that or can be part of that. I don't use that as a somatic sex therapist, but what I am doing is I'm bringing my couples into experiential practices where in real time, they get to meet and greet the thing that is actually in the way of them, let's say, having more a deeper connection or more pleasure in intimacy. And that's just done through, again, experiential practices where they're actually being brought into connection, let's say. How we might do that might be through using breath, through using eye contact, and then using different practices that help develop that first skill of noticing. There's multiple practices I use that are done in a solo practice, but also in the relational space, how we start to bring in that noticing relationally and being able to use our voice as part of that. So yeah, that's it.
I'm curious, how often, and then what do you do if it shows up when you have a partner who's had a sexual trauma in their background that deeply actually affects how they're able to express themselves sexually, how much capacity they have to receive their partner's sexual energy? How often is that an obstacle that people have to unwind?
A lot. I mean, I see that
really?
a lot. Yeah. unfortunately, sexual abuse and trauma is so rampant out there, either through childhood sexual abuse or, later in life. And really again, it comes back to this very first skill of noticing. So what you want to do in those situations is help that person be able to slow down, to notice enough of what's happening in the body. When is the shutdown happening? And so having that level of awareness is really the first step, right? Can I become aware of when I am closing off? When am I pulling away? What are the sensations in my body like when that happens, so that we can start then to track it? Because once you have that awareness, then you can start to name it. So I've noticed and I've named. And then there's two things that we do to start to create more safety in the body. And it's either slow down or reduce intensity, or both. It could be a combination of the two of those. And they could be one and the same potentially, depending on what's going on. So slowing down or reducing intensity, that might mean, whoa, I need you to stop touching me completely. So I can just breathe into my body. I might need you to move just 10 feet away so that my nervous system can come back into a state of regulation. So that I'm equipping them with those skills. And so there's several things happening there, right? But once they learn how to have sort of control and authority over that, then we can sort of gradually increase intensity at their discretion. They're in control of that. How far, how close, how fast, where is the touch happening? Learning how to really, what's called choice and voice in the somatic sex education world, empowerment of choice and voice. So choice is about having choices, that I always have a choice to say yes or no or maybe. I have a choice to just opt out completely. We're so conditioned that you have to, right? You have to eat all the food on your plate. You have to sit at this desk for 8 hours a day. You have to be still during class. I mean, as kids, we are just conditioned into denying our bodies responses, our natural responses. We've been trained for a lifetime to ignore them. For generations, and more so even with women, right?
To quiet the voice, to be seen and pretty, but not to be heard. I think the expression for women is probably one of the hardest places too, because it's like if the throat gets shut down or the vulva or the vagina gets shut down, they're such a mirror image of each other. And so, if there was sexual abuse, if there was, or even just
a dominant parent that when, that suppressed your voice and all of the things.
Or even just not like encouragement inside of sexuality, like maybe just living in a suppressed, Catholic household or whatever it was.
Sure, just this society in general. I mean, the Puritan influences in our country are so unconscious, right? I mean, we're really founded on like the denial of pleasure and the hard work ethic, and no pleasure until you've worked really hard. And
right.
We don't even, I'll tell you this crazy realization of this. When I was about a little over 20 years ago, I took a trip to Nepal, which was fabulous, but it was so insane there. Like I realized all my American conditioning around this in this very way. So in Nepal, they'll serve you all this food on a plate, and whatever you eat first, they come around and give you more of that thing.
Oh,
but
really?
So I was so conditioned, like, well, I don't really want to eat the carrots, but like I'm going to eat them first, so then I can get to like the good stuff later. But what would happen is I'd eat the carrots and they'd come and they'd bring me more. I'm like, well, shoot, why are you bringing me more? So I didn't understand. So once I caught on to like, oh no, you eat the stuff you like first, and then they bring you more of the stuff you like, and they don't bring you more of the stuff you don't. But this whole thing went off on me of like, wow, like, I mean, I was so unconsciously conditioned to like eat your peas before you're
do the hard shit first, then enjoy the pleasure.
You don't get any pudding if you don't eat your meat. How can you have any pudding if you don't eat your meat?
That is so funny. I also did the same thing my whole life until I realized I'm eating the best bite first.
Yeah,
the best bite, because you can always taste the first 3 bites are the best bites.
You taste them.
Your mouth is so yummy. Okay, so this isn't a pushback. But it is a counter.
Sure.
And I want to preface it by saying I agree with everything that was just said. And sometimes we have an avoidant tendency.
Yeah.
Which means we're so in the habit of like not pushing ourselves. We stay in the fear. We stay in the avoidance of not wanting to feel the scary feelings that are trapped in our body because of an inflection point of trauma in the past.
Yeah.
And sometimes we actually need encouragement to confront the thing we're afraid of feeling that we get flooded because it presents itself and then we run in the other direction.
Sure.
So it's like we got to be able to, I think, decipher.
Yeah.
When am I'm flooded, I need a break, I can't take any more stimulation.
Yeah.
Can we have a timeout? As compared to, I don't even want to try, I don't even want that. And then we find ourselves never having intimacy because that avoidance is so strong.
Yeah. That's
And
such
then
a
what
good
do we
point.
do for the partner who's always in the yo-yo of trying to figure out, well, now none of my needs get met because this is all based on you.
Yeah. Well, there's sort of a sweet spot in this whole, it's called like the learning zone, right? Where there's just enough nervous system activation where we're actually able to let new information in. So we're not in the comfort zone, total like avoidance, and we're not so flooded and overwhelmed. We're in the trauma response, the flight or freeze.
Right.
So there's sort of a certain nuance to that of learning how to find that within yourself. If you are that person that is the one shutting down who's experienced the trauma, is can you again, it comes back to that skill of noticing, like, and it's a fine line. And I would say that we have to give ourselves permission to not always get it right and to not always know.
Yes.
The other thing I always ask my couples is, what are the potential things that are going to come up in this process that could sabotage your success? We're going to identify those at the very, very beginning to the best of our ability, because what I want is I want my couples being able to identify what their patterns are, ideally as best they can ahead of time, and then resource themselves. So when that happens, what are you going to do to make sure that it doesn't, because you're here and you obviously want something to be, if we really want change, we've got to be willing, right? Ready, willing, and able. So can you identify what the potential saboteurs are? The behavior patterns, the thought patterns, things that are going to happen that you're going to default. And so once they name that, so we've got notice and name again, then okay, great. Then I ask, how are you going to manage that when it comes up? What are you going to do to make sure it doesn't derail you? And so I have them identify what's going to work for them. And I'll ask also, is there anything that you need from me or that you can ask for from your partner? We don't want to make it all on the other person or on the therapist, right? Because I don't want them leaning on their own energy. I want to be there to be a support, a facilitator, a catalyst, an illuminator, but I don't want the change is not on me. I'm there to support it, but I'm happy if I can provide something to help that. If I notice it, a lot of times like, okay, yeah, if I notice it, I'll call it out. I will, because now that you've just said that's your pattern, if I see it, I'll call it out. But I'm going to also call you to do the things within you that you just said you're going to do when this happens, which might be like, I'm going to notice it or name it, or I'm going to tell you or ask my partner for support. So we have to resource ourselves in that. We cannot leave it to default or leave it all on our partner or our therapist's shoulders to do that work for us.
So good.
Yeah,
So good.
amazing.
Love it.
Yeah, super powerful.
So I believe you have your Pleasure Keys retreats for couples.
Yes. What
Tell
would you
us
like
all
to know?
about it? Well,
Yeah,
how
it's so fun.
often? Yeah. Tell us
How do
what
people
it is,
sign
how long
up?
they
Do
are.
they
how
have
do
to
they
be
sign-
clients of yours? Can
All
they
the
just pop
things.
in?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, the retreats are really my absolute favorite way to work with couples. Again, I think I said this earlier because I love to be able to see couples go deep and to get out of like the day-to-day life, to get away from work obligations, kids, and sort of the normal household stuff where we're stuck in our patterns, to really be able to pull away and go deep, where I can really teach these principles and they can leave with it embodied. It's embodied learning. They learn through experience. So it's not just in the head where we're analyzing or talking about concepts. And it's not just a once a week thing where you forget what you just talked about in the session the following week. So it really is a chance to go deep and develop these skills of getting back on the same page, and then notice, name, and negotiate, and all the nuanced skills that are under each of those three ends. We go deep into that, and it can be fun. So we do the retreats. This year I have 2 retreats. I have one coming up actually in a couple weeks here, and another one this fall. And we'll be doing them about 4 times a year. So kind of a couple in the spring and a couple in the fall.
And then
so
how
the
many
best
couples
way-
usually come to these retreats?
Yeah, I cap it at about 10 couples. So it
Okay.
is intimate, and I do that on purpose to keep it intimate. And and so there's lots of time for the couples to connect. There's a lot of time in the afternoon. We do the teaching from about the morning into the early afternoon, and then afternoons and evenings are open. So I don't like to have like where it's all crammed in and you're exhausted at the end of the day. Lots of
Right.
breaks, and there's food and
Integration time.
yes, and beautiful. Our next one is going to be in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, in the Smoky Mountains, which is just absolutely a stunning location. If you've never been a beautiful place. We'll actually do our one in the fall there as well. And then we'll be having some other locations coming up in 2026.
That's
And
so
where do you call home?
My home is the Western Mountains of North Carolina. So I'm about an hour west of Asheville up in the beautiful mountains here. I love it.
And then you also work one-on-one with couples or individuals or just couples?
I do. Yeah, I do work with individuals. I'm a specialist in women's sexuality, so I primarily will work with women as individuals. Then I work also with couples in private coaching, and I work with couples around the world. I do virtual coaching.
Great. And how can people
Yeah.
find you?
Thank you so much. Yeah, all of my stuff lives at pathwaytopleasure.com.
Nice. I love it.
And you have I believe you have a free gift for our audience. I thought I saw that somewhere.
yes,
Can
I
you tell us
do.
about it?
Yeah, so I have a free ebook if anyone would like to go a little bit deeper on the conversation around the pleasure keys and actually have some practical things that you can do today to start to implement and develop the notice, name, negotiate. So it's a free downloadable ebook at pleasurekeys.com. And really the goal of that is to give you a taste of some of these principles in an experiential way so that you can deepen connection, increase orgasmic potential, and start to get back on the same page, creating mutual fulfillment for the long term.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Thank you so
amazing.
much.
Such a pleasure to be here with you today, Susan. Thanks for
Oh, and let's
coming.
talk about your podcast, Susan.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. I always forget about the podcast. Sex
Don't forget
Cafe
about the podcast. We were
I
on
love
your podcast.
Yes. Yeah, we're on the
Yes.
podcast. It was so much fun with you guys on there. We had such a great time. Yeah, Sex Talk Cafe. It's on all the platforms out there. We do juicy conversations on sex, love, relationships, embodied sexuality, all kinds of great topics. And these two amazing women were just on, and we'll be getting that episode published very soon. So join me over there at Sex Talk Cafe. The website on that, sextalkcafe.net, but you can find it on any of the major podcast platforms.
Awesome. And we'll have all the links on the show notes for all these goodies. Susan, after our recording with you on your show, Will and I hung up going, we really like her. She could be our friend. So
I
thank you
texted,
so
I told
much.
Susan that. She texted me back. She's like, I had the same thought.
Yeah, it was really
Good.
great. Yes.
So fun.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the Bliss Boogie or the Boogie. What was that
Oh,
thing you
Bliss
sent me?
Bliss
Yeah.
Boogie.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's up in
Come.
Raleigh, so it's only about a 5-hour drive for me. So yeah, I'm looking at the dates, and yeah, I think I may try to make it up there. So I'll let you all know. We can meet up. It'd be so fun.
Yes,
that would be
that would be
great.
fabulous.
Love
Yeah,
it.
well, thank you
Well-
both so much. This has been so great connecting with you, and yeah, such a ton of fun. So I hope we'll be in touch and have more fun
Do it
together in the
again.
future.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, y'all.
Much
This is up next. We have the
The
dish.
dish.
So stay
Stay
tuned.
Now, our favorite part, the dish.
If you think low sex drive is the problem in your relationship, think again. The real reason desire fades has nothing to do with attraction and everything to do with something much deeper. So let's dish it up.
Yes. That was the biggest takeaway from this episode. And it was so refreshing. One of the things I wish I would have asked her was her opinion, if she had an opinion, on spontaneous desire versus responsive desire, and if she plays with that at all, because it's another angle of working with mismatched libidos. And I feel like her system is actually a great way to address that responsive desire versus spontaneous desire issue. But I also kind of like that she doesn't categorize that, because it feels really good to go, this is an obstacle that can be solved, and this is how you do it without having to put labels on anyone.
Yeah. Her noticing, negotiating, and naming technique, the 3 N's, was really, it leaves it a little bit more open. Like, you start with noticing, what are the sensations in my body? It helps you get really present. You can drop into a different level in your nervous system. What are you noticing? Are you noticing frustration? Are you noticing tightness? Are you noticing anger? Are you noticing love and expansion and openness? And then naming those things so that you have your finger on the pulse of what's going on inside of you. And from that place, communicating, her word was negotiating, which isn't the sexiest of words, but she did say that too. But, it is like, relationships can be such a negotiation. It's like, this is what I'm bringing, that's what you're bringing, and how can we, come together in a cohesive way.
And I was really pleased to get the approval of my I can get to a yes if I
Yeah,
get this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
you have
yeah.
to ask yourself, what do I need to
Uh-huh.
have a enthusiastic yes
Now,
to be able to provide that?
that technique, you brought up a relationship in the past that you had to use that for.
Yeah, and
And
it works great. I got a computer. I think I got a trip to Mexico. It really, really worked. And I'd be like, okay, 8 sacred spot sessions, for this laptop. It was so fun. And actually, the excitement of being provided something that I needed, gave me so much more enthusiasm to show up so much bigger with so much more joy.
Yeah.
It was a really interesting transaction. And I'm so grateful that there wasn't resentment on either side, because that's my fear. People do, and I can understand why too much transactional things in a partnership can really leave someone feeling sour.
Yeah, then it can just start like to feel like a business partnership rather
exactly.
than a relationship. And I think in the way that you played with it with that particular partner, it was a fun game that kind of brought you guys closer together. I'm curious if you use it at all in your current relationship.
No, because we share everything. All the money goes to the same place, so
it doesn't make sense. He can't like buy you a laptop.
I have got the access to the credit cards as much as he does. You know what I mean? So it's not like I need him to provide for me in that way.
I wonder if there's some other way he could provide for you that would make you. I mean, you're already pretty excited to deliver sexually, it seems. So it's not an issue,
right? It's different for some reason, and he doesn't seem to have the same level of neediness. And I use that word loosely because I don't. So we often use the word neediness to judge, and I'm not using it in this case to be judgy. But this other partner had more needs and wants for more sexual stuff. And so sometimes I just didn't want to. Wasn't in the mood. And so I had to come up with something to help to transform that and transcend that. And then this just worked. And we weren't living in a shared household.
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, you're going to learn a lot from Susan. And if you are in a couple partnership and looking for some support, check out her retreats because they sound amazing.
They do. I mean, I even thought that'd be fun to go do something like that with Matt. I mean, it just seems like she gives so many skills and communication, which is like the most important thing when it comes to having better sex is being able to talk about it and have some space being held so you can say the things that you've been afraid to say. You can take some of those risks. That I'm really was happy with the way she answered that question.
Yeah, that was great. All right, y'all. Well,
all right. You know what you need to do now, you guys, is you need to subscribe, my lovies. Yes.
Subscribe, like, and share, and we will see you in the comments. Let us know what you thought about our interview with Susan Taylor.
Okay, love, love, love.
Thanks for tuning in. This episode was hosted by Tantric Sex Master Coach and Positive Psychology Facilitator Leah Piper, as well as by Chinese and Functional Medicine Doctor and Taoist Sexology Teacher Dr. Willow Brown. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.
Awaken Arousal Oil is my new best friend. Like Laura says, holy forking shirt balls, did it deliver on its promise. I could feel the blood flow and warmth, and that was the easiest I've ever achieved multiple orgasms. This is all natural botanical oils. It is made with CBD because CBD helps relax muscles and it eases tension. This stuff smells so good and it mixes with your pheromones like mwah, so good. Get yourself some. Link is in the show notes.